Welcome to another episode of Lighting Booth. And I actually forgot to turn on my second backlight, so let's do that for quickly. There we go. So today we have someone from Gearbox Software, Tanay, and he will be talking a little about his journey and process and so on. And as usual, we are delighted to have you viewers as well. And remember, you can ask questions if you want to, and you can ask questions on Twitch, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and it will pop up on our screen. So, without a delay, let's welcome Tanay.
Hello.
Welcome. Hey. So, how are you?
I'm pretty good. How about you? How about everyone else?
Yeah, very good. Tanay, you are someone who recently, more or less, I think 11 months ago, give or take, joined Gearbox Software, right?
Yes.
And you're working on a game called Tiny Tina's Wonderlands, right?
Yes. It is the game. Yeah.
Cool. So, what's the game about?
Well, it's kind of like there was a DLC for Borderlands 2,
Oh,
called Assault on Dragon Keep, and it was like the fan favorite kind of DLC. Like for a lot of people, it was like even better than like the base game. So people were a big fan of it, and
okay.
Gearbox decided to like go back to uh, that same concept and turn it into a game.
Okay.
And so we made Tiny Tina's Wonderlands. It's pretty much like it's like D&D, kind of like based on like Dungeons and Dragons, but like they call it Bunkers and Badasses. And Tiny Tina is like the bunker master of this game,
Okay.
and you are playing in her fantasy kind of setting that she invented for that game. And the game is pretty dynamic in its like storytelling because of like how Tiny Tina is actually like like changing things in middle, like just changing her mind about something, and like environment just transform into something else. Things like that happen quite often, and it's a very interesting game. The people who actually played or loved Assault and Dragon Keep, they're gonna be like they're gonna enjoy this a lot.
All right. Cool. Oh, does it doesn't have an official release date yet, right?
No, it doesn't have any official release date. It just says like it's gonna come in 2022.
Okay. That's not too long ago from now. It's a couple of months technically.
Yeah, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and where are you from?
Well, I'm a lighting artist, and I'm from India. Originally from India, and I kind of moved here to pursue a career in like some education actually in VFX, game design, and animation. And I joined Think Tank Training Center, and I got interest. Like I was initially a environment artist kind of
Yeah.
guy,
Okay.
and it kind of changed into like the lighting artist as I focused a lot on it. I kind of found my calling in it, and then it's just like as it says, I just joined Gearbox and I'm here now.
Nice.
Yeah.
So, did you intend to join Gearbox, or was it a planned incident, or was it just one of the good interviews and opportunity? What happened there?
Well, yeah. Of all the opportunities I had in front of me, Gearbox seemed like a very perfect choice because uh, the lighting team, they are like the most wholesome bunch I ever met, and they were like they were like very friendly. They were super nice, very understanding, and during that process, I was like, okay, like I never really thought I would be working for Gearbox. I used to play their games. Like I played Borderlands 2 quite a lot. When it like in 2013 or something. I was like in grade 10 or something when I actually first like played like one Gearbox game, and then like I was kind of like, okay, like I never really like ever thought about like, yeah, I'll be working at Gearbox kind of thing. It's just like when I actually gave the interview, I was like, yeah, I don't care for other. I actually like the interview process here. The people are super amazing, and Angelica parent Angelica and Carl Carl Shed. Those were the two people whose work I have seen extensively on our station, and I was like, holy crap, I'm giving interview to these people here, and it's I was like, yeah, I want to work with these people, and it was a very fun. It was a perfect choice actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Angelica, yeah, I believe she's one of my favorite as well.
list. Yeah,
Yeah, I actually remember. I think it was a year ago or 2 years ago, maybe. Uh, but I think she switched a few times since then. Um, um, okay, so you said you had an interview process. I'm curious to know what kind of questions did you get? Did you get some difficult questions you were like stumped upon, or was it mostly easy for you to answer the interview questions?
well, the interview actually was quite. It was a very different experience actually, because like in the interview they were not really asking me any technical questions. Um, they're actually more focused on like who I am as a person, if I'm like a fun guy to work with, and like what my favorite things were, what my favorite games were, what my favorite movies or cinematographer was, uh, and all those kind of stuff. And it was very casual sort of like interview kind of thing, and it was pretty good. Like I kind of was like understanding, because there were a lot of things like the back and forth thing happening, where like I was saying something, and Angelica or Kyle or Stephen Cole, they were like coming up with like, oh yeah, I love this guy too, I love this thing too, oh yeah, I'm like big fan of this thing, and all those kind of things. And it was more like it felt more less of an interview and more of a like you just met like a bunch of friends,
Right,
like
right.
like you just joined like a school or something, and like you're introduced to like these new people, and you're like just trying to know them.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
was just that kind of thing. And then they gave me like an art test.
Mm.
They thought like, yeah, I'm like I guess like once you're like someone they like, they just invite you to do the art test. And after the art test, I guess art test is the one where like your technical skills and um, your lighting artistic skills are like kind of evaluated through that. And once you pass the art test, you're just like getting, yeah, moving forward with another interview, I guess. And they just like, you just meet like the rest of the team, and they give you a good idea of what
Cool.
everything's about. Yeah.
So when you did the art test, did you have to write a report or just the art test?
Oh, it was just like art test. I just nothing more. Yeah.
Cool. That's so I normally just give them a report anyway. When I do art test, I'm like, I'm gonna give a report just to score some points, right? So as a lighting artist at Gearbox Software, and of course for those who don't know, Gearbox have done Borderlands, and is it two Arms of Brother or something?
Brothers in arms, and
Yeah. They also bought two IPs, I believe. I don't remember. They bought two IPs as well. Yeah, it was Homeworld they bought the IP of, and there was one more they bought the IP of.
yeah.
So we can expect probably in the future some games from that IPs and well as well, I'm sure. So as a lighting artist at Gearbox specifically, what is your typical role there? What do you do?
Uh, well, I mean, it's usually I work on levels mainly. And it's kind of like sometimes I work on my own level, like it's like given like full control over it. Sometimes I'm assisting on like another level, like whatever the previous lighting artist has worked on it. Like I kind of like work off of that and stuff like that. Basically, giving feedback, trying to like sometimes you have to like audit the textures and stuff like that, uh, the light maps and stuff, if they are like like what needs the fixes and stuff like that. You just have to basically do everything that's gonna get rid of as much as visual artifacts, uh, in the environment as possible. uh, Anything that's gonna like obstruct the lighting, you have to be like, hey, so I was thinking like I need like some light coming from like this particular angle, and can you like, I just talked to the level artist and I'm just like, can we like find a way of like making a hole in the wall, or like can we just like do something else here, sort of thing. And that gets like evaluated depending on like if the art director is someone who's like also like on board with like that idea. It goes further, and like we do the changes accordingly. So like it's very typically, I guess, like very common thing to do in by all the lighting artists, I guess. So yeah, it's pretty standard stuff. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So that is definitely useful to know.
Hmm.
So when you do your game lighting, generally so far, is there something that you found different, shocking, unexpected from when you were at Think Tank as a student?
Yeah, I think like when I was a student, I was working on like much more smaller scale projects, because there was like very limited time. Like we used to have very limited time, right? And uh, there are like so many things that like I learned while in while working at Gearbox, like looking at other people's way of doing things, sometimes shaping the lights in a way that like it in real life it probably won't be like that, but like it fits in this environment the way they adjusted it. Probably sometimes you would be like, okay, a candle can't really light an entire room, right? But sometimes in real life it does, right? Like in few places sometimes it doesn't, but like whatever is like the visual benchmark that you have, and like uh, whatever vision you have about that particular thing, it's like kind of like changes, transforms a lot, considered compared to like what I was doing in school. Like in school I had like a pretty simple vision of what I wanted to do. Sometimes I was like overambitious, and definitely fast paced kind of thing. But overall, I think with approaching few.
Something's going on your microphone and sound. I think. Let me just see what's happening. That's
Thank
unusual.
you so much. Uh, is it good now?
Why it's lagging or something, which shouldn't happen because this is an external server.
Huh. Well, that's weird.
But it seems to
Uh,
be fine now, so you can continue.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
So if I'm fine now, I'll continue.
Yeah.
So what happens is like the way I approach things now, when it comes to the lighting, the more the things I focus on, the things I actually try to do, like like when I was back in school, I was not really that focused on like having a lot of bounces, light bouncing. The focus was mostly on the motivated light sources, or like the practical light sources, than like the natural light sources. And Now I'm kind of like it's also the nature of the project that I'm working on. It requires me to like use maximize the usage of the natural lighting as much as possible, and that has been like a thing. Like in my previous projects, most of the lighting was done through motivated light sources, like all the practical light sources, the
So
lamps and
what do
stuff.
you mean with that? To for someone who doesn't understand that, let's explain that. What do you mean by motivated light source? Are you saying you have one light for the
So
light source?
yeah, like so like you have the sources right here, right in front of you. Like like there's a lamp you can see, that is the light source
Hmm.
that's gonna affect your scene, kind of thing. But there are but like like sometimes you have to like use uh some light sources that are not really showing up on your screen,
So
and
that's what
those
you
are like,
learned at work, basically. You didn't learn that when you were a student, but you picked up
yeah,
on that during your
yeah,
work. Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah,
how do
more or
you
less.
maximize the daylight or natural lighting? What do you do? Do you place out your light and then you're like, okay, I need some more bounce light there, I need some more bounce light there, I need some indirect light, basically, or how does that work?
I think what I learned a lot more about while working on this is like the light color mixing. There are like so many light sources in like your scene sometimes. I mean, this was more like me just working and like kind of like coming across this thing because like my brain decided to use logic one day, and suddenly like I was like, oh, okay, there's like this a very pink light source here, or like blue light source here, and there's like a very yellowish light source here, kind of thing from the sunlight, and but like I want like some ambience here, like ambient light here. So what can I do here? Okay, I think I can like have a little bit of green, you know, very faint amount of green, like just spreading around sort of thing. So like it kind of like mixing together and stuff like that. So those are the things that like I kind of learned, because like you have to think about the playable space, the playable area, how much of it is visible, the enemies are visible or not, and stuff like that. In few cases, like when it's like just a cinematic shot, you can get away with like not like having like huge amount of contrast in your scene, right? Like having like, even in the personal projects, you can have a lot of like dark areas, not pitch black areas, but like very high scale contrast, right? But like when it comes to video games, like when you have to think about the playable space, you can't really have that much of contrast kind of thing. You need enough that like it looks good, but like you have to make sure that the enemies are visible and stuff. So that's when like you have to think of creative ways of like adding that like mixed color lighting, the ambience lighting, boosting up that thing, having like more of the natural lighting doing things. Like sometimes you just have to focus on the floor and not on the walls, right? So that the contrast can be like the walls can be dark but the floor can be, so you can see the path and stuff like that. Things like that. So there was like a very important tip that was given to me by like one of the lead, was that like to make things look huge, just keep like the top areas, like the ceiling areas, kind of darker, and have like a bit of gradients from like the bottom floor to up, and it will make things look huge. And I was like, wow, that just changed my life. I never thought about that. Like suddenly I was like, like it was like me just having like my brain just exploded. I was seeing universe and shit. So it's pretty much like that. Yeah.
Nice. So, yeah, I was playing Hitman 3 recently, and on my personal YouTube channel, I was recording, going around shooting all the lights
Hmm.
to explain how bright it actually is. But you don't notice it because you can shoot every light in the game more or less 99%. I think they forgot a few, because when I was running around in Hitman 3 and shooting light, I said that's supposed to be off, but it's not off. So I think they forgot to do something. And I kind of was explaining the same concept that it's pretty bright, but because of the contrast between the brightest light and their dark areas, it still feels pretty, bright. But when you take off all the lights,
Hmm.
it's still pretty bright. So how many shadows do you use in your project, in your game? Is there a limitation, or how do you approach this?
Uh, I kind of don't understand the question a bit, but I think like what you mean is how many dynamic sources or something like that.
Well, so some projects have like a limitation on, or you cannot have more than four shadow casting light in one area or
Okay.
one room or something. Do you have any of those challenges?
Yeah, I mean, we sort of do, but like it's kind of like since we have most of our games so far, like Borderlands 3, for example, a lot of areas kind of are like baked shadows. So like you don't really have like we have dynamic lights. Some of them, like most of the dynamic lights, are like non-shadow casting. Uh, the thing is like if we have the shadow casting dynamic lights, but like stationary lights, that they don't like have like dynamic shadows, but they, I mean, sort of, but like it kind of breaks down the indirect light and stuff, right? So it's like semi-dynamic in a way. But those ones we have to be very careful of, not the number of it, but more like the overlapping. Like we have to make sure that they are not overlapping way too much. We can't have dynamic uh, like shadows as much. Like for example, like sometimes like you have like a lot of dynamic objects, right? Like that can break or explode and stuff like that. And oftentimes they don't cast any shadows, right? Like especially if you have like a very static light kind of thing, it doesn't cast any shadows. And when like they look on when you look at them, like they kind of like seem like they're floating. They don't have any connection between like the ground and like those objects, and it kind of comes off really weird. Usually we kind of find some ways to like like just fake a shadow by like having like hidden shadow, just putting like a geometry and like hiding it and like just let it cast like a hidden shadow kind of thing, so like it looks like they are there kind of thing. But sometimes we like it's on like usually on the crates and stuff. But on few like key areas, sometimes I often use something that's like dynamic shadow casting, but like I can't have more than one or two in a map. Like we can sometimes I do, and then I ask for forgiveness. But but usually if like it's looking good and like if the budget can afford, it depends on that. Like it's map to map basis. Like it's different for everything.
Cool.
Mhm.
Just to remind everyone, you can like and subscribe and share because that's how the YouTube algorithm and Twitch and everything works. If you're not doing it, less people find this live video, especially when we are live. They're least likely to find us. And also, if you have any questions, don't be afraid to ask your own questions. That does save me from thinking about questions, so that makes my life easier. So don't hesitate on that. So you have probably you mentioned a bit like 10 minutes ago that when you do a lot of the work you also have to like make sure it works correctly and it's prepared well for the lighting. Does that mean you have to do you have to use any of your 3D skills as a lighting artist, or you normally assign someone else to fix the materials or normals or two-sided or something like that, or do you do all of that on your own?
Um, a majority of it is something that I actually send a request to be changed or modified or fixed. But sometimes in few areas, if it's something that can be fixed by just like for textures, you can just open up the texture and like adjust the brightness curve through the texture in Unreal. And if that fixes it, like you don't really have to necessarily send it all the way back to be changed at the source. Usually that would be ideal if it changed at the source, but sometimes like it all depends on the time constraints and like uh, all the deadlines and stuff like that. So uh, it varies usually. Sometimes few things, most of the things do get fixed and changed and like from the source, but sometimes we have to like do like some small hacky stuff to get good results. Yeah.
Hacky stuff.
Yeah.
So you guys mostly use Unreal Engine, is that correct?
Yes, it's Unreal Engine 4.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just checking because it's kind of hard to keep track of that. So what would you say is your most favorite thing with your role?
It's also it's kind of like a very open question for me because like they're like uh my
Fine,
favorite
fine.
thing.
You can pick three things. Fine.
Well, in actual way, the thing is like what is favorite right now for me is kind of like something I hate the next day. So so it's kind of like
Okay, what's your
uh
favorite right now then?
right now I
Okay,
kind of
what's your
like
favorite right now, and what hate did you hate yesterday?
uh well, I mean it sometimes has to do with like like sometimes I'm just like I just like having like very monotonous kind of lighting in few like places, and like if I get like an area that has like overcast lighting, I'm just like that's my calling. That's my favorite thing, right? And like every time I get like overcast lighting setup or like a nighttime kind of thing, I'm just
Yeah.
like, yep, that's
Oh yeah.
me. That's my
Wow.
favorite thing. And like having like so for me the most favorite thing about lighting art sometimes is just like finding ways to like just increase as much as like gi as possible, having like as much as things lit up through like natural light sources. And it kind of like in my recent things, like recent lighting experiments, I have been like focused on like just natural lighting as possible, as much as natural lighting as possible. And it's
So,
like,
so when you do natural lighting, sorry, when you do natural lighting, do you go into the indirect settings of light and you boost them up because you feel they aren't good enough as the default settings, or how does that work?
well, that's kind of changes like from work to work. For example, in this one of the scene, I'll just share the screen actually. Um, yeah. So can you see my art station here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like in one of these scenes, for example, uh, the light setup was very simple. It was it was so simple that you would laugh at me. It was literally just like a spotlight on this boy here, a sunlight, and a skylight. That's all I did. But like what I tried to do was like try to like maximize as much as light I can coming from like these windows. And like I focused a lot on like my uh skylight in here. And yeah, I kind of like bumped up the indirect lighting source in here. But like in few other places, like in few other things, like the work, the way things I'm working at, like at Gearbox, sometimes those things are not possible because of like very um let's say it's just like the light just doesn't like it blows some things out of proportion. It sometimes brightens up things that you don't want to brighten up, right? So in that one you have to have like very controlled sources. Like I use a lot of spotlights that have the same color as the ambience, that the indirect lighting color that I have, and I just use that, and I use very low intensities with like very soft shadows, like like the area shadows, and I just like use them a lot and try to get that same thing, like the same thing as like I want. Like I was looking at like Last of Us Part 2, for example, for like inspiration. Like when I have to do any sort of like a very overcast lighting sort of thing, I look at that and I just like try to I try to figure out what they might have done there, kind of thing, because that game is very indirectly lit.
So how does it work for you in your with your eyes? Do you look at a piece and you go, okay, I know Unreal might be doing it mathematically correctly, but according to my experience, I see the light differently, or I have some photo. Like, how do you process it with your eyes, artistically speaking, that you know that okay, this needs to have a boosted indirect light to make it look correctly? Like your image now, it's obviously one light. Daylight wouldn't necessarily brighten that much in Unreal Engine. It would do it in real life, but if people do it trusting Unreal Engine when they just put it in. Normally, beginners do that, students do that too. They put it in and say, "Yeah, but this it says recommended one. It says that's what I'm doing." But yeah, but that's not how light works. It's supposed to be bouncing more around. How do you approach it? What's your process for that?
Well, it also like depends case to case. But like what I do usually when I like look at like when I do like something in Unreal and like I'm not getting like when I do like that. Uh, so like for example, sometimes I boost like the indirect lighting intensity like very high, like 4 or 5 or something like that.
Actually, let's look at
And
your art station. You can
oh
talk
yeah,
about it while you look at the art station. You can show me some of your work, and you can try and explain
sure.
what you did and your thought process for your
Yeah.
pieces. It might be easier if
Mhm.
people have a look as well.
Is it like yeah? It's showing right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So in some of the areas, for example, like I have like this scene here. Okay, like this was like
Follow him on our station. You see his name? Just look at the name and type it in our station and follow him. Okay, everyone? Okay, you can
oh
continue.
okay. Oh, I see. So yeah, so in this scene, for example, over here, you might think like I mean like it was very naturally lit, right? But if I actually was like so in this one, I didn't try to increase or bump up the indirect lighting intensity too much, because if I do that, there were a few things that were blowing up. Like they were like kind of like getting whitewashed kind of way. If I'm like that's not a good term. Like it was
Oh,
kind of like just getting a lot of like it's just getting
yeah,
washed out kind of thing. Like it was getting
I call it. Oh, we generally call it white clipping.
yeah, kind of clipped up, and like I was losing a lot of contrast in some areas. Some things were like looking like this couch, for example, was looking bit too not like reddish, it was getting more like purplish sometimes in some areas and stuff like that. And I was kind of like, okay, I don't like that. So what I was doing here was like using a lot of spotlights, just like very faint ones, like hitting like this guy over here, like this sculpture over here. Few things were like I was like using like some very low intensity point lights in some of the areas to like make them like like slightly like so I was trying to get like this light, the light that's coming from the window. I was trying to like make it reach all the way over here by using the spotlights.
So
And
for some reason your mouse doesn't show because I'm guessing you have more than one screen maybe.
oh, okay.
So when you say here, just make sure you say what you're pointing at.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. So if you see in this image, for example, there's like this window, for example, over here on the right side of the corner, the screen. It's kind of like the light wasn't really reaching all the way through, like I wanted it to. So to remedy that, I was actually using like spotlights instead of like bumping up the indirect intensity of that sunlight to like reach all the way through. And like it was usually like trying to angle out things the way like they are. Sometimes I like turn off the shadows, so like it doesn't like create like different like shadows that are going in different directions
So you
sort of
normally do
things.
that. You do it if your so you do it if your first light doesn't
Yeah.
cover your indirect level.
Hmm.
That's normally when you um, use more light. If that
Hmm.
doesn't work, if skylight doesn't work, if directional light in this case doesn't work, that's
Hmm.
normally when you go, okay, I need to add more lights. Is that
Yeah, yeah,
correct? Mm.
yeah. Like for example, in like in the other scene, like
Just keep it open, man. This is
yeah,
this is
yeah,
okay.
yeah. So like in other scene over here, for example, that thing I didn't have the same issue as that because I'm just using one skylight and sunlight, and that's like doing most of the work for me. I didn't have to add any other like like spotlights, like just like coming all the way out and stuff. It was spreading around just perfectly. And sometimes the thing is like Unreal sometimes just works in its own way. Like it's sometimes unpredictable. Sometimes things work the way you intended to, sometimes it doesn't, and you have to do like extra things. um, Over here as well, like actually if I actually look at this right now, I could see like the issues over here, for example, the indirect lighting intensity is just like not working properly like throughout the entire thing. There are like some lighting bugs here as well. But things like that happen a lot, like they are a lot more common. And sometimes you just have to like, okay, like I have to like so like basically in this sense, like the motivated lights are like these lights, right, in a way. And then like I'm just adding like few lights like in this area, for example, in this one. This was the motivational light, is the sunlight. But like I'm like using spotlights to like maximize the effect of that thing that are like unmotivated lights. It's kind of like the lights that are like not really the source here, like that they are not the part of the main source, they are just like supporting that particular thing.
So, is there any reason you didn't make it brighter in that piece? Is there a reason you kept it dark?
Yeah, I kind of wanted it to have like a very like I didn't want to use any of the like practical light sources in here. I just wanted to rely maximum on this sunlight here. I was actually looking at this movie called How to Be Single. I know that the name is very weird, but it was extremely amazing. So
Well, I
I was
can tell you how to be single, man. You don't need to watch a movie for that. Just come to me.
I know, but like I was actually using this like shot deck, and like over here, um,
It costs money now, so I don't know if you get in.
yeah, yeah. It there was like it was it is an excellent it is a really excellent movie. Sorry, like the like in terms of visuals especially, and they have like I was like looking at like this shot, for example, and I was like, okay, like I like how like the colors look in this one. Like it's just like a lot of this movie is like visually stunning for me. I look at it and it's just like I get the mood in here, you know what I'm trying to say.
So,
So,
so this brings me to other question, like how
mhm,
do you tackle realistic lighting with creative lighting, right? It's two different things, right?
mhm,
Because if you look at it from a realistic point of view,
mhm,
you would know it tends to be brighter in real life. This amount of light that comes in would brighten up the room. So how do you deal with that when you do your PCs, and how do you deal with that kind of feedback as well? Because a lot of students, they might be doing something without reference, but they have an idea, but they didn't have a reference maybe, and then they get feedback from people and say, okay, it's too dark, too light. Because from a realistic point of view, because I have this kind of window as well, it would be
mhm.
brighter, right? But you have a reference from a movie, which is of course it's an artistic, creative choice.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, for me, so the thing is like when I do any sort of lighting, I don't really have like I don't really like. I mean, for example, like currently, I'm kind of like, oh yeah, I kind of want to make something Silent Hill like, you know, and I would just go around like looking for like references. I live in Vancouver. It's always rainy, and it's pretty much like how like foggy and rainy in Silent Hill. So I don't have to work too hard on that. But when that kind of thing has like I have a vision, I want to make something look like Silent Hill, um and I get to the thing and I start doing things, I play around with it. I don't look at like the references and all those things that much, because like I'm just like impatient and I want to get to it at any cost. And that kind of thing, I mean, usually I don't like look at references as much as you might think, and that is actually not a great thing. Um, but the thing is, like, what I do is like my idea mostly, like any idea that you get, like for any kind of thing, it comes from something. Like you are just like sitting, just drinking your tea, and then like you suddenly see something that kind of like inspires you right off the bat. Like when I was looking at like when I was working on like this scene over here, I just saw this picture while I was browsing. I was just like browsing something like apartment or something like that, and like I saw this picture and I like how like this entire room was like, it's just sunlight basking in and like everything is just lighting up. And for me, that was like just one thing that I was like, okay, I just want to like do something like that now. Like
Right.
I want to like do something similar to that. Like it doesn't have to match it. It doesn't need to like um it doesn't need to look the same. I just want to have like something similar, or like just like a sunlight coming in and just lighting up, brightening up the entire room. And I got to this thing and I just like did it. I tried like multiple things. I failed multiple times. Um, like there's a lot of trial and error kind of thing. Like you can't like just get to that point like instantly, right?
So,
um
so how does this compare to the patrol station you were talking about?
Even Patrol Station, the thing is I never had like a solid reference. What I was doing back then was like, so I played a game called Alan Wake. It's my top 5 games of all time. And there was like a gas station scene in it.
Yeah, I know.
And
It's pretty,
yeah,
pretty famous.
yeah. So it was like I loved it a lot, and I was like, okay, I kind of want to like do something like very similar to that. Like, wow, they have like just my picture right next to it. Great. but but I saw this and I was like, okay, I kind of want to have like very similar vibe to this one, but like the architecture of this thing is like very like old. Like I can't like exactly like do like 100% similar thing as this one. I need to like do something of my own. And there was like this place called Yosemite Country Store, and I loved it. Like I like the way it is uh like they don't have pictures here, but like yeah, it was like this. And I was like, I like the structure of it, and I like how like they have like all this like like elements right outside the store. And then like I was like, okay, I'll try to like remake something similar to that, like the structure wise. So I have like very much similar structure,
So did you
writing here.
model anything, or did you
Oh yeah,
find it?
yeah.
Or okay.
Yeah, I modeled everything, textured, UV'd everything in this scene. Like it was all me. I was just like taking the reference from it, and then I was like looking at Joachim Stexon. I'm probably like not saying the name right. Sorry, but
He says probably it's okay.
okay.
Ah, Joachim Stigson.
Yeah, Joachim Stexon, and
I
he
am no,
had this golden
I'm no,
gaslight.
I am Norwegian, so I know the Scandinavians' names.
So he had this really amazing. Like this was something that I saw like in like before coming to think tank, and I was like, wow, like I want to make something like this someday, right?
Mm.
And like I was like, okay, I have a really cool idea. Like I like how he did the lighting in this one, and like the lighting was pretty amazing. He made like a lighting blueprint for this one, right? So I was like, okay, I have like these things jotted down, what I want kind of thing, and I just got to it. I was not really looking at any concept art or key art. I was just looking at like the elements that I wanted. And I did like a reference research of what things I liked, and I just built it together. I just put it all together. I was not looking at any solid concept art or reference kind of thing. I did have a sorry, I did have a reference board, but it was like for props and stuff. But
Right.
like for the environment kind of key art kind of thing, I was very much relied on like I pretty much relied on uh, on my own like things that I liked kind of thing, like just photographs, some other things. It was like just like a surgical project in a way of like Frankensteining things.
So for the patrol station,
Mhm.
if you were to go through the whole process you did in more detail and also discuss um, what you did at the time, what you learned, and also
Mhm.
based on your experience now, you have been almost a year at Gearbox working on this new game. What would you do differently and why?
So back then I had like a very over ambitious kind of like a scope for this project. Like I wanted to do like multiple lighting setups, like overcast, night, golden hour, and like dusk, just like how like Joachim Stixon did. And but like the thing is like I had to rely on a very dynamic light setup. I couldn't like bake things to switch in between because the base vanilla Unreal doesn't really have that functionality, and I can't really like get into it right away. I don't want to like code things right now. So I just created like a blueprint system, very big blueprint system, and that was like my main course, right? Like that was something that was a learning process for me to create like a sky blueprint. And when it comes to the lighting side of things, the ambient side of things were looking pretty good. The thing that like I kind of like had to learn like through photography or like through like the feedback that I was getting from experience points was like how to angle stuff, right? How to position some lightings like the sunlight or moonlight or whatever that you kind of want to do, how to rim certain elements, how to separate elements in your scene and stuff like that. Over here, for example, there are a lot of lights, a lot of lights in like the center area of this gasoline section. And like I know like Brian Lilu, he was like giving me like few tips about like how you can have like a shadeless light in the center that's going a little outward so it feels like the light is bleeding out kind of thing. How you can like how you can have like your emissives have to be like very bright if it's nighttime and very like rarely visible in like golden hour or daytime and stuff like that. And how to have like how to judge, how to gauge the values that you need in order to like make things look like like decently like kind of realistic. And like because a lot of people sometimes overblow their emissives in the daytime or like something like other day like lighting thing where like it shouldn't be like blown out and stuff like that. So what I learned while I was like working on this thing was like how to like judge what values you want in what places. where you should like focus on, like how you should like focus on um, certain elements, like what you need to make things look like they're standing out from the rest of the thing, how to like have the attention of the viewer, where to guide it, where to put it, and stuff like that. Like I know where to put lights. Wherever I see a light fixture, I gotta put a light, right? But like for example, these barrels here near the fence, at the very corner, those things are not like actually lit by the directional light. I actually had to place like a lot of spotlights over there so that it looks like something is hitting them, something is like shaping those barrels, like they're kind of like looking separate from like the path. Before doing that, those barrels were like barely visible. They were like not something that were like separating from like what was ahead of it. You know what I'm trying to say?
Yep.
So so things like that are like what like I learned, and I kind of like started understanding while working on this project. Before this, it was like me just trying to get the atmosphere. So like before this lighting project, I tried to like work on this thing, which was not my best work. I kind of hate it a lot right now, but but over here I was just trying to get the colors, that I wanted. Like I looked at these two images, and I was like, I just want to have like the colors of this particular two references that I saw, and that's what I tried to do over here. But like there was no actual mood in it, there was no shaping. The lights were pretty uniform. uh, they were not like something that I was like big fan of. Afterwards, when I started like understanding how lighting works, same with library lighting, it was decent, but it was like pretty even out. Like a lot of lights were just even. They were not as like in real life, like how Brian Lillo explained it to me. In real life, all your lights are gonna be like slightly different in intensity. You know, like the kitchen light that you have might be like different bulb than like your bathroom light, and they're gonna both have like they might have the same fixture of light, but they both might have different bulbs. They both might be like one could be older bulb, one could be the newer bulb, and they might both have like some slight difference in like their values, their color temperature, their stuff like that. So you need to keep those imperfections of real world in mind and try to apply those things to like your work. Like have like separate different intensities of light, have different uh, temperatures to your light, have a little bit of like small different change in temperature could be also like useful in a way. Small difference in like in intensity can like change a lot of things. So you have to keep those things in mind to make things realistic, and that's what I tried to like implement in my further things that I try to do. Even in like at work that I'm doing right now, I kind of like have like very different separate like separate lighting, the separate lights have like different lights have like separate intensities, different intensities, varying ranges of things. That kind of makes it look right. If you have like same intensities on everything, the thing's gonna look very video gamey, or sometimes it's just gonna look like out of place, because you're just gonna be like, why is everything like new over here, right? Like in spaceships and stuff like that, you would have something blinking, you would have something slightly less intense, shifted, or could be broken. Some lights don't even need to like have like lights turned on, right? You have to like think about all those sort of things, and then like suddenly the things start looking better. Few things are formulaic. Sometimes I just like whatever Brian Lillo used to say in like that server, I wrote it down into my head, and I was like, yeah, I have to keep these things in mind. And Brian Lillo is an excellent artist to learn from, especially color grading. I am It's just changed my life the way he actually like does the grading and stuff, because you can nail the lighting, but sometimes you can have that really amazing mood that you want, that you never thought that you really wanted, through color grading. And it's color grading changes things, Really well. Before I used to do the color grading, like, like just bring it into Photoshop, add all the things that you want, and like just convert it into LUT and just apply it in the post process pipeline. But that's very destructive way. And it doesn't like really scale on like every other monitor, like if you have a HDR monitor, those same LUT that you're using on your HDR monitor might not work that well. So, sorry. So you have to rely on like the color grading tools that you have inside Unreal itself, like in post process. And I really had not enough idea of how to like change those things, but I was like reading what Brian Lelu did in like one of his sci-fi bunk scene, where he was like going through like how to like adjust the highlights and stuff like that, and that kind of gave me like a really good idea of what kind of range I want, what are the things I need to do. And like you sometimes sort of like look at these different artists, you look at how they do things, and like at one point you just start developing your own kind of like art style or like style of lighting. Like somebody would look at your work and they would be like, oh yeah, I know this one, I'm pretty sure this one is done by Amit because that kind of screams his style, you know and basically the aim is to like have your own style, at some point
That
make your own
makes
signature. Yeah.
that makes sense. I mean, Brian, he because I also did the Joker Subway,
Hmm, hmm.
and
Oh yeah,
he
it's so much good. I looked at it. I was like, yeah, that looks really good.
and yeah, I took spent some time, and it looks like this for people who haven't seen it. Um, and he also picked on my colors when I was asking for feedback, because he was also looking at it, and he was like, the colors, no, you're not there. And he also did the same thing to me. He was like, so he's definitely I might ask him to come on an interview as well to do some colorist talk. um, but I also got some feedback from the same thing like you guys. I also get the same feedback from Unreal Academy. I think the guy, the YouTube
Oh
channel. I
yeah,
don't know. Yeah,
yeah,
he
yeah.
he found the tutorial, and he also critiqued it, and he put it, and he went even further. Said no, you're still not there. And then he told me about the actual color of for the references. And then I
Mhm,
went afterwards and I looked for the Unreal for the Joker references without
mhm,
the color grading. I don't know if you've seen them, the original photo
mhm, mhm.
with all the color grade. And then I was like, oh, I had the wrong color on the seats. So
Yeah,
if
yeah.
I figure out that correctly, it would probably improve. Do you ever do that kind of? Have you ever tried that when you look at your references and when you do some lighting for movies? Do you ever find the original footage that's not color graded to kind of adjust the material colors before you do anything? Have you ever tried that?
I I sometimes do, but like it is not sometimes. Sometimes I kind of like take that as a challenge that I don't want to. I kind of want to make things like work the way it is, because in our line of work we can't really like say like, hey, you kind of change the color of the seats kind of thing. Sometimes it's just like you get what you have and you have to work with it. And I kind of like, I mean, I don't want to say this out loud, but sometimes I'm lazy. I'm actually a very lazy person. I'm someone who just like looks at things and I'm like, okay, how can I do this with least amount of efforts possible? And and I just like go like, all right, I don't want to put too much efforts into this. I'm just gonna do something that's like gonna be quick, cut gets the results kind of thing, and I'm just gonna go with that. I do like a lot of shortcuts and stuff like that. That's like I cheat a lot. I'm a lying, cheating person.
Yeah,
That's what I do. That's what
the
artists do.
That's true though. That's true though. Like a lot
Yeah.
of the game lighting is just cheating, isn't it? So how was that from when you were a student to doing the actual? Did you ever feel like, wow, they really cheat a lot compared to what I thought to get the lighting to be good?
Yeah, the thing is like so like I kind of like came a bit from like a programming sort of like background, and my main thing is like, to like have things like as much realistic as possible, like in terms of like how it is, like, just put one sun, and I'm gonna like do everything I can to just like let that sun do the things, right? And when I was like working on like one of the semester projects back at school, I was kind of like I was lighting something, and then like I was not getting the result from that one sunlight that I wanted. And my instructor came in and told me, hey, you can just add a bit of like a rect light over here, just like spreader. I was using V-Ray back then. And he just like told me like, so we were using Maya's like V-Ray lights, and like he told me like, you can add like a bit of like low intensity thing here, and like, it would look good kind of thing. And I was like, yeah, but that's not how really word works, and that's not how it is. And then he's like, yeah, that's the thing, like, you gotta have to cheat on things like this. And I was like, yeah, it makes sense. He's like, like in movies, for example, a lot of the things are like, like a lot of the things are
Just
like,
cheating, just cheating.
yeah,
Everything. They
yeah,
have black
using not just,
clothes.
you
You
have
know.
like, yeah, you have like reflectors and all this kind of stuff, like you are like not really using anything that's like, like there are a lot of practical lights that are like just sitting there just casting things, right? Like they're not really like actually natural light sources, they are
Yeah,
like just light sources,
but
right?
it's believable, right?
It is
Actually,
believable. Nobody asked questions about like, hey, I was never like sitting in like a person talking to a person and like see like rim lighting on this person. Like
mm,
he just looked like normal dude, but like in
no.
movies, games, and cinematics and stuff, you gotta have that rim lighting and stuff like that. Like that's what makes it look great, right? And like in real world, it doesn't really necessarily happen.
No,
but
no. I mean, that's
but
true.
so I was like, yeah, wow, that changed my like entire vision back then. And
Yeah,
I was like, just like started adding all these motivated light sources in areas, and I was like, who cares? It
yeah.
looks good. I don't care if it's realistic or not. If it looks good, that's how it should be.
And you wake up in the morning, you look yourself in the mirror, and you go, "I'm such a cheater, man. I used to be so honest. Now I just cheat all the time."
Yeah, it's yeah, that's how it is. Like, you just like that's the thing. Like you just wake up and you just look and like I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna lie today so much. I'm gonna do so much of cheating. I'm gonna do everything just on a whim. But it's honestly, it's kind of like very interesting.
Just cheat. That's what you're saying. Just
Yeah,
cheat. Don't be
just cheat.
honest. Just
Don't be
cheat.
honest at all. Just cheat. Like that's
Uh,
how you do that.
yeah.
Especially on your art test, you gotta like have a lot of like light sources. Just like don't try to be like realistic. Try to make it look good at any cost possible, no matter how much of lights. Like like I mean,
So
like
so based on that, last question before we probably have to end because our
mhm,
hour is almost end. I didn't know the time passed this quickly. I was like, what?
yeah.
Last question. What advice would you give to students to if you were to give three advices, what would you give a student advice to learn lighting, to prepare for being a lighting artist, then getting the job?
Well, I mean, I would give more than three actually, but like the thing I would like focus on mostly if you want to have like an artistic eye for things, like if you want to develop things, do a lot of life drawing. Life drawing, it's like really like helpful. Like when you like understand like how like when you start sketching things on like a paper while looking at like the model that is in front of you, you kind of learn about like silhouettes a lot. You learn about like even animations. You have to like focus on silhouettes, and silhouettes are very important when it comes to like any sort of art things, like be it like level art, be it lighting art, be it anything. You have to focus on silhouettes a lot. So life drawing is something that you should, if you never did, I mean, it's not a necessary component, but it is something that would develop your eye for detail and
Okay.
composition a
Let
lot.
me let me pause for you and you can start doing it.
Yeah. And the other thing would be a lot of photography is like I follow a lot of photography pages on Instagram, and a lot of them give me like really amazing like ideas and a lot of like color like information for like how you want to like what kind of color combinations would work, what kind of things would work. I never had like an artistic eye, to be quite honest. I was like very much of like a coding kind of guy, and like I just play games. Even the games that I was playing, it was like goopy goblin brain thing, just shoot things, nope, not pay attention. But like when I started getting into like the I decided to make my own game sort of thing. At one point, I was like observing. I was not playing game to like enjoy. I was playing games to like observe. Right. Same with movies. Like at one point, I just stopped watching movies for like enjoyment and more like for like the camera movements, the lighting, the cinematography. And I used to watch like the channel called Cookie Optics, where they like break down how they approach like this particular scene, the lighting and stuff like that. Like try to, if you want to like do lighting for games or like anything that's like virtual kind of thing, you have to like look at how the things are done in real life, especially in movies. And once you like understand like how photography and like how cinematography in real world works, you're gonna have like ideas of like trying to emulate the same thing but in like Unreal editor or V-Ray, whatever lighting software you're gonna be using. You just have to be like very observant when you're watching that thing. And the third thing would be like I would never I never worry about like if things are looking realistic or not realistic. Sometimes we actually kind of like go into the rabbit hole. This is something I kind of did as well, and that was something that I picked up while watching Lighting Academy. Is that like sometimes things just don't need to be realistic. Okay, there could be things like like hey, the sun is like in this particular angle, and like the light should just like like the light won't rim this particular thing from the camera angle that I am on, kind of thing. Nobody gives a fuck. Just don't do that. Don't worry about that. Just try to like add a spotlight that's just like just like coming a little in different angle from the sun. But if it's giving you like a really good look, you know, just go with it. Don't try to like fight with the logic. Sometimes things don't need logic to look good, just go with what like looks good and you have like good things. So it's that.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's good. So before then, I also want to remind people that you can join our Discord channel, where hopefully Tanay will be, and you can always catch up more, ask more questions, because
Yep.
as you probably figured, Tanay has a lot to say, but he only has an hour to say it.
Yeah.
So maybe we'll invite him back. So if you want him to be invited back for next time for some more topics, you have to like, subscribe, and share, and also join the Discord for leaving some comments here and there. And
Hmm.
also, we do have portfolio review in our channel. So if you have some work that you want us to review, you can stop by and we will try and review it. And we also have our lighting showreel. So if you have some work that you want us to highlight for you, you can submit it in our channel, and then our jury will review the best three pieces and they will enter into our YouTube video. So that was that. So let's say thank you for you, Tanay,
Yeah.
for joining and taking the time to join. What time is it now over there?
Oh, it's like 3 o'clock now. It's fine. It's like 3 in the afternoon. Yeah.
Cool. It's 3 in the
Yeah.
afternoon. Here it's 11 at night, so it's bedtime for me. So again, thank you so much for helping,
Thanks for having me.
being part of this, and of course, hopefully I can see you on Discord as well.
Hmm.
And yeah, thank you so much. And I will say, let's say goodbye for everyone,
Yeah.
and
Goodbye.
let's turn off the broadcast, and we can
All right.
talk a little bit afterwards.